So welcome everybody to the Communicating Sustainability Marketing Challenges workshop. Thank you so much for joining me as part of the spring gathering. We've had a few events on today so far. I've done 2 online ones already and they've all gone really well. So hopefully this one will be good as well. Thank you for those of you who, when you registered, you shared some of your questions and challenges when you signed up. I have looked at those and I've got them on a nice Miro board so we can see them together. My plan for today is I'll probably talk for about 10 minutes or so just to introduce myself to you, share a little bit about Sustainable Fashion Scotland and the kind of marketing and communications we do there, which I lead. I'll tell you a little bit about my other kind of work and what I've been working on to do with sustainability and marketing. I'll also show you probably the biggest piece of work I've done, which is an ebook, which was part of my undergraduate research at uni, all about this with a kind of framework that I've found really helpful, and I've heard from others that it's been useful for them for sustainability marketing challenges. So I'm hoping you will find that useful as well. And once I've finished talking for a little bit, I would love to hear from you. So I do have the challenges you submitted on the Miro board, which I'll share screen and share link to after. So I've not put your names next to it in case you'd rather remain anonymous, but if anyone would like to sort of share a bit more about your specific challenge, the plan is to work through that together in this hour that we have. I don't know everything. I'm not an expert. I'm sure lots of you here also have knowledge to share. So I would love us all to kind of work together and discuss these solutions. So I'll try and make sure we have time to get through as many as we can. But I mean, if you do have any questions after this or want like a one-on-one chat just to follow up on anything, I'm quite happy to do that as well. So don't worry if we don't get through everything today. But hopefully that sounds like what you're expecting to get from today. And as I said, if there's any other questions along the way, just pop it in chat. And then once I finish speaking, we can have more of a conversation as well. So yeah, no worries, Rebecca. That's totally okay. We've just started. So I'll just share my screen just now and show you a little bit about myself and my work in marketing and SFS as well. So give me 1 second. Can you see my screen? Yeah. Great, perfect. I'll zoom in a little bit. So my name is Mairi Lowe, for those of you who haven't met me before. I'm the creative director at Sustainable Fashion Scotland and one of the founding members. So that takes up quite a lot of my time, but I do other things as well. So I've put my uni degrees here, which is a bit relevant to marketing. My undergrad was in fashion management at Robert Gordon University up in Aberdeen. And that's where I did my research into communicating sustainability, which I'll show you in just a second. I then did a master's in social innovation at Glasgow Caledonian, which is where I met Lisa, who is one of the other founding members of Sustainable Fashion Scotland. So that's where we met, and that connection sparked off lots of good things like today's event. I'm really into systems thinking and systems change, which I do apply to my marketing. So just, sort of zooming out, zooming in, thinking quite holistically about problems. Again, not an expert, very much learning, but I think it's a good tool to have as a marketer, as a communicator, to be able to think about other perspectives and just zoom out a bit more. For my main kind of income, the career I'm working on, I work as a freelance content marketer and have done so since 2018. So I've not been in it too long, but I feel like I have gained a lot of useful experience, a lot of knowledge along the way. I've had some good mentors, which have definitely helped. And my kind of undergrad degree as well definitely influenced that. So that's a bit about me and who I am. And just to give you a little bit more, tell my story a bit more, I guess, through here. I'm going to come back to this. But this is me when I had much longer hair after the buzz cut, before the buzz cut, sorry. But yeah, this, if you don't know where this is from, you probably might not be able to tell from just this one picture. This was at a clothes swap organised by Alicas, which was a social enterprise in Edinburgh. They're kind of on pause right now, sort of transitioning. But this is how I got into marketing. So and I guess this is kind of the story that I share. So when I was 17, almost 18, I just moved to university in Aberdeen first time. I found myself in a really abusive relationship, which was not what I had planned going to university, obviously not a great situation. When I left that, I really wanted, once I managed to leave that relationship, I really wanted to kind of do something with that pain and turn it into my power, I suppose, give it a more of a positive spin and a purpose. So that's why I decided to start volunteering for Alicas. And what they did was gift bespoke clothing parcels to survivors of domestic abuse and women in clothing crisis. And all the stock they had, all the clothing they had, was surplus retail stock. So it meant it was mostly probably from like fast fashion brands, but brand new with tags on, would have otherwise been sent to landfill because it hadn't sold. So they diverted that stream of clothing and prevented it from going to waste. But they also addressed a really big social sustainability issue, helping survivors of domestic abuse and women in clothing crisis build back their confidence and dignity and identities in a really like respectful and dignified way. So although usually you would maybe go to like Women's Aid who do amazing work, and get maybe like hand-me-downs, kind of, rummage through, find something that fits. What they did was, create a really bespoke parcel with a handwritten note. All the clothing was your size, fitted your cultural, religious needs, and just like helped those women build back their identity. So that was kind of the turning point for me, where I realized that fashion could be a force for good, sustainability wise. And again, not just for the environment, but also for people and society. So that's kind of set me off on my path on sustainability. And I should say too, what I was volunteering for them was helping with social media management. And then I got paid work from that. So I'm really like grateful to the founder, Rachel Buse, who sort of mentored me through that and got me that work. So that's where I kind of started. Coming back to this slide, as part of my final research project for my undergraduate degree, I was investigating recommendations to encourage more sustainable consumer behaviour. So I've definitely like moved on a bit from here, and I would change things now, but I still think it's a useful resource. And just this slide here just shows you one small part of it that was looking into the barriers of people to participate in the sustainable fashion movement. And that means, not just buying like expensive clothes that are made well, but taking part in repair and reuse workshops, for example, all the things included in sustainable fashion. So there's more on that in the ebook. I might talk a little bit more about that as we go and refer back to that for help, but I'll share the link during this call, and I'll maybe send an email out after so you can have a look yourself. But what also I should say, how I got to these recommendations, as well as sort of my own research, like reading, was I interviewed, I think it was 9 or 10 people working in sustainable fashion in Scotland in various different roles, a lot of designers and brands, some manufacturers, the Fashion Revolution team, so some activist groups as well, for their perspectives on kind of who the Scottish, like the kind of typical sustainably minded Scottish consumer is, the barriers for other people participating, and then some recommendations that are more practical actions you can take and implement in your own work, falling under a framework called the 3 E's, which is engage, educate, and empower. So I will come back to that. But very quickly as well, I just wanted to share, if you've not heard of Sustainable Fashion Scotland before, just a very quick intro. We are a community-led non-profit, and our mission is to connect the fashion community in Scotland and accelerate collective action for a sustainable fashion transformation. So marketing is a huge part of our work, building relationships. We've done a lot of online events. These squares here with the quotes and the questions are all online events. We do a magazine which comes out each year. The third one's in production right now. So this is a really good opportunity to share the stories and of the people in our community doing really great work. So very excited for that to come out. We also do loads of other stuff, which is over here, but I won't go into all that right now. But I'll share the link to this board after. So if you'd like to have a look at what else we've been up to, this is a good place to start. And oh yeah, I just put this in very quickly. This is my main work, my main freelance client right now, the school system change. So I lead their communications as well. So if you want to have a look at what they're doing in social media as well, just another place to look for ideas. One more thing I forgot to say is I've done some teaching just last semester at Glasgow Caledonian University. I was teaching first year students about marketing and sustainability specifically. So I've nabbed a couple of slides from there, which again might be useful. Maybe we can come back to that, but just good things to kind of think back to, especially this when we're thinking about what sustainability marketing actually is. So it's not just, you have a product that's made with eco-friendly fabric, for example. It's not just telling people that. Sustainability marketing is very holistic. So these highlighted ones are sort of how marketing is shifting to support sustainability, I suppose. Cool. And so before I finish talking, I guess there was two main things I thought that would be interesting to focus on. So one is the Engage, Educate, Empower framework that is in the ebook that I mentioned. We can have a look at that if helpful. But the reason that this emerged from that research is because one of the kind of, you probably know this yourself, one of the key things when we're trying to encourage people to behave or act in more sustainable ways is that a lot of people have really kind, positive values. They have really good intentions. They want to be sustainable, whatever that means, or to put out good into the world. But often we see there's a gap between that and actually taking that action for various reasons, for all the barriers that I've mentioned. So this framework is what I've proposed to kind of bridge that gap from people wanting to take action and wanting to get involved to actually feeling enabled to do that, or feeling empowered to take that action. So I mean I made this up. I think I didn't make it up out of nowhere. It came out from my research. I find it very useful. Parts of it you may find useful, parts of it you may not. Cherry pick what's useful for your context. And as I said, there's more specific steps in the book, but I think that's one thing to be really aware of is it's called like the value action gap or the intention behavior gap, whatever, but just being mindful of that and really thinking what is it that people, what is it that is that barrier from people taking action. And then the other thing that has become a lot more present in my work recently is the power of storytelling, which I think if you are maybe a smaller organization or working with local communities, I think storytelling can be really powerful, especially if the stories are, about someone's next door neighbor or someone that they know or someone like them that's relatable. So those are the two kind of themes that are quite present in the work I've been doing. And I think there's a lot of potential through like Engage, Educate, Empower and the power of storytelling to sort of influence and change behavior, which is what we all want when we're talking about sustainability, really. So that's just a brief intro into where my mind's been at and my kind of experience, and maybe gives you an idea of what sort of advice I can give. But as I said, I don't want to just talk for the whole hour, and I'm also not an expert. Hopefully I can help, but I would love for us all to kind of share our own experiences, and even you don't have to have the answers, even if you have a question or an idea that we can explore together. I think that would be really interesting. So thank you again for anyone that did share these challenges. I've put these 5 at the top because I feel like they're very like specific for context, and I've put the 2 at the bottom, which are maybe a bit more like questions or kind of less maybe for us to dig into, but I'm very happy to work through any of them. But maybe before we do that as well, I wonder if anyone just has any questions about what I've said so far, or if there's anything else you would like to cover in today's session other than going through these, and we can try and fit that in as well.
I can't think of anything extra. That all sounds really good. I was just wondering whether we could get these, what you've put on your wall, as kind of slides afterwards.
Yes, absolutely. So what I can do is I can share the board with you. I can also share slides, maybe I can look into that, but I can share the board, and if it's not quite working for you, let me know and I can share slides for sure. I can send an email out after this event. That's totally fine.
Great, thanks.
No problem. Perfect. So unless there's any other questions, I wondered if anyone here that has submitted a challenge, or if it's not on the board, we can add it if you have another one as well. But would anyone like to maybe share a little bit about their challenge and what what help you might want as well, or if you don't know that, that's okay. But yeah.
I don't mind going first.
Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Rebecca. I work for Network Rail at the moment. I'm an internal communications manager. So although a lot of the work that I do and promote isn't related to fashion, I work with our sustainability team at Network Rail in Scotland. And I help with a lot of the promotion of the campaigns that they run, and it relates to decarbonisation and the railway. Obviously, again, a whole different area from fashion, but the one that I submitted there is the one about greenwashing, and it's just something that I thought about when it came to challenges when I'm putting out campaigns and I am creating content around sustainability. I think for a company that's as big as the one that I work in, it's really quite hard to find a balance between, you know, really celebrating the work that we're doing and making people trust you and not seeming as if we're greenwashing, basically, and, you know, just celebrating all these things when there's still a lot of work that we need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for proposing that as well. And like, I know you said it isn't exactly fashion, but I'm sure we can take learnings from it and apply it to other areas as well. So happy to like talk a little bit about that. And again, I said I'm not an expert, but I'm sure we can together have some discussion and think up some ideas. Yeah. I guess maybe to start in, it's interesting that so it's like a bit of a bigger organization.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, does that maybe present you with some kind of restrictions in terms of what you can share, or do you have quite a lot of agency there, I guess?
Yeah, well, for the work that I do, it's all internal, so it is for colleagues.
Okay.
And I think because the content and the communications that I'm putting out are for such a large audience, that audience is segmented into so many different personalities and people with different thoughts and beliefs and from different backgrounds. So trying to get such a vast amount of different people to, you know, take in what you're saying and, like I've said in this note, like trust you, believe you, and you know, read it and act, like read your content and act on it, like you were saying, actually take action rather than read it and just assume that the stuff that we're doing in my work, for example, isn't greenwashing, and it's not just you know, singing and dancing about something that's not really a big deal. So yeah, there's a lot of challenges.
That's totally fine. I like a complex, complicated thing to get stuck into. I guess maybe I have like two questions that are coming to my head. One being, and just to like find out a bit more information. I mean, one, like you said, you know, getting people to act on it. I guess, what is it you want people to do? Getting really clear. I know it might be different for different things, but you know, if there's, why are we even talking about this? Like, what is the purpose?
Yeah. Well, one thing that we do is, so we have a campaign that's called Our Green Code, and it's basically 5 guidelines for colleagues to use to reduce waste, recycle. One of the guidelines focuses on energy use. So it's all these things. So one of the things that I'm always constantly working on is the campaign around that, and to get people to, you know, use these guidelines and remember them whilst they're working. And yeah, it's just hard because it's also hard for me to sort of, you know, gauge how seriously people are taking it. So things like recycling in offices, it's sometimes hard, I feel, to make people realise how impactful it is that they do that. Yeah.
Yeah. It does sound very tricky. Like, I don't envy you.
Yeah, I've just come in here with like massive, huge, big issues.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Maybe some other question, which also might help, was like, what has worked well so far, do you think? What has resonated with people? Do you have any idea? I know you said it's hard to gauge, but do you have indication on that?
Well, I think, like, again, what you were speaking about earlier on, people stories. So, you know, putting out content that is actually featuring colleagues that have done other things and have started other initiatives within their workplace and their office. So I've written up a couple of stories about people who have, you know, got proper recycling bins fitted in their offices, and you know, reused items and stuff like that. I think it's been good featuring people in these sort of articles and videos, because that is, you know, that's colleagues, they'll relate to a face, or they'll relate to people that are like them. So I think that's one thing that has worked. You know, there's been good feedback from it, and people are enjoying seeing their friends and their colleagues, you know, act.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And as I said, the ebook I've written was a few years ago, so this probably isn't in there. But yeah, the power of storytelling, and specifically focusing on people and almost like stories of change, or like things they're doing. I think that can be a really nice narrative, you know, that people like to see that kind of positive impact. And yeah, like you said, people like them that they can relate to as well. And I suppose that probably makes them feel more part of a team, or part of a movement, which, you know, in the kind of bigger, wider sustainability narrative or whatever, like,
exactly.
like feeling part of something bigger, that what you do does make an impact, rather than what's the point, like, you know, we're doomed anyway, blah, blah, like.
Exactly. I know that's so widespread and not related to fashion, but there we go. I've hopefully got people's brains going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And well, linking to that, the SFS magazine that we put out each year includes like the main, you know, the most attractive thing about it is that we feature stories of people in the community doing things differently in fashion. And again, it's all about the people. It's, you know, not about the brand as such. It's about the person behind that brand, or whatever, the manufacturer, that kind of thing. So yeah, I feel like we're all human, we're all social creatures. Like, that maybe is something that we do underestimate quite a lot. You know, maybe, I guess, big companies maybe talk about more how they've reduced so much carbon, but that doesn't, I don't really connect to that. I don't know how much carbon means what, or, you know, that kind of thing. But people and emotion is something that we can connect to. And also just making your employees feel valued, I guess, as well. Again, just making them feel part of something bigger. So yeah, and I know you mentioned you said a story there about someone having fitted like recycling bins. So I guess maybe like the call to action there could be for other people to do that in their offices, and you would sort of show them like how you can do this as well, or that kind of thing.
That relates to what you're saying about stories about change as well, and kind of following a journey. That is something that's probably going to be, that's going to work as well.
And I mean, obviously not every story you share needs such a solid ask, but I think something important I've learned too is, or the engage, educate, empower framework, a lot of the time we'll maybe engage, you know, it's interesting, and we'll educate, tell them a bit more about what it was, and then it just stops. And then people they just get on with their day. But if you can have a really clear call to action, whether that's, you know, subscribe to our newsletter or email your manager to get your recycling bin to fit in, I think just catching people at the right moment and making it really clear is really important if you want people to take action and change their behavior.
Thank you, that's been really helpful.
You sure?
No, it has.
Great.
It has.
Perfect. And I wonder, I mean, does anyone else have anything to add there, or any ideas as well? We can also come back to it later, or move on.
No, I think that's really good, especially about showing examples of people that have done something, and if they look happy with what they've done, then that encourages people. And it means people don't think, oh, I could do that, but I'll probably be the only one. So
Yeah.
what was the point? It shows they won't be the only one.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Thank you so much for bringing that to us as well. And as I said, if you go away and have any more thoughts or questions, feel free to email and get in touch. Happy to help. It's also like great learning for me. So I've never done a workshop like this, by the way. I've never asked people to bring challenges. So yeah, I appreciate your support.
Thank you. No, that's good.
Perfect. Let's turn that one green to show we've nailed that one. Excellent. Would anyone else like to touch on a challenge that you've proposed or share? It doesn't need to be on the board. If it's anything else, just introduce yourself and share a little bit about your challenge, I guess.
Can I go?
Yes,
Cornelia. Let's jump to the second row of your notes here. The lack of shops and galleries. Quickly about myself, I'm a textile designer and fabric upcycler with a fine art background. My home-based studio is near Couperangus. Soon I'm gonna relocate to Ailith, and both places are located in East Perthshire. I use secondhand fabrics for applique work on my slow fashion garments. An example is behind me. And the garments themselves are often made from new linen. They're all the garments are one-off pieces, and my output is really small. In the future, I would like to use nothing but recycled fabric, secondhand fabric. And this is where one of the problems lies. When I buy garments, pre-loved garments from charity shops, I never get the width of fabric that I would like to have to make new garments from. It's usually bits and pieces, which I try to use either for patterns like the one behind me, or for something like what I'm wearing, which is basically a patchwork approach. Hope you can see it, where I combine different fabrics in a patchwork, large patchwork bit, and that I use to cut my patterns. Where's the problem? It's finding fabric that I can use and enough of it. And so I wanted to suggest somehow that people like me who sew with sustainable fabrics, i.e. recycled fabrics, could they form a group, a collaboration where fabrics are sourced, stored, and then sold on to makers like myself, sort of a fabric central, because I spend a lot of time trawling through secondhand shops or looking for donations to get pieces that I can use for my work. And that's just, it's not very economical in a way. And the second point that's actually on your list here on the note, I have trouble selling my work, and that's not because the work is rubbish, but I'm basically limited to local markets once or twice a year, where people who are interested in sustainable fashion can actually come, touch fabrics, look at the colors, and most importantly, try on what I'm making. I do, of course, have a website with a shop page with nice photographs of my work, but it does not generate any business at all. So it looks like when we talk clothing, customers want to see the real piece and try it on, most importantly. East Perthshire is where I'm located. I haven't been able to find any galleries, design galleries, that would take on garments. And so again, like before, this idea of having a central for finding good and usable secondhand fabrics. Could there be a cooperative of clothing designers that work with sustainable fabrics and secondhand fabrics. A place where, you know, something like a gallery that shows, or a shop that shows only garments of that kind. A central, where, you know, okay, I'm into sustainable fashion, I like designer fashion, where do I go? And then this address comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, like they're two different challenges, but they're definitely related, and I guess link a lot to like place, like you were saying. And maybe another thing that again is, well, not again, sorry, another thing that is really important in marketing and communications that I think often we don't think about or don't consider is the power of relationships, and how important that is, like relationships and partnerships. And a lot of the time it is like who you know, but that can often be quite exclusive, and you know, you need to spend ages, and we don't all have time or the knowledge there. And that's partly one reason why Sustainable Fashion Scotland exists, to help connect people, like you were saying. I mean, I personally don't know galleries in East Perthshire right now, but I'm sure there are people in our community who would know people that could potentially help with that. So, you know, that, I mean, a bit different from here, but I could always put a call out in our next newsletter if, you know, if it's something specific like that. And talking about the secondhand fabrics, like kind of a central hub or accessing them, we actually had an event on earlier today, which I will be uploading a recording from Can, who runs Circular Arts Network. Do you know it? It's like an online, yeah, okay, great. Just for anyone who doesn't know, it's an online platform, kind of like Gumtree, kind of like Facebook Marketplace, but specifically for people in the creative industries. And there is like fabric there. You can use it wherever you are. They're very happy to figure out solutions to help with delivery and collection. So if if you're a bit more in a rural place, for example. But yeah, I guess there's a few more informal things like that, and Facebook groups kind of popping up to aid with that. But I know that might not seem like the most reliable place to go. I know there's, for example, in Glasgow, there's Arc de Faux have a new shop, the Dead Stock Fabric, that kind of thing. But and then again, so perhaps another marketing challenge that would help with that is something that's been on my mind, is with or through Sustainable Fashion Scotland, we've for like 2-3 years now in the background, when I have time and capacity, have been working on developing a directory, or 2 directories, one which would show alternatives to, or fast fashion alternatives, such as like yourself, you know, designers, secondhand charity shops, sewing workshops for more focused on consumers, but another one that would link kind of, we say like, pardon me, change makers or people working in fashion and textiles. So I think for that kind of marketing challenge of just not really like not knowing who is out there or what's available, or having those connections, like you said, to showcase in a gallery or shop, like it really is about building up those relationships and also having access to that information and just knowing what is out there. So I don't have an immediate answer to that right now, other than perhaps, you know, like coming to events like this and just connecting with more people with similar interests, with similar goals, even if they're not in the same location as you, but, you know, with a similar kind of problem or a similar business, and maybe sharing learnings that way. I think we really like peer learning. I think we can learn a lot from each other, and a lot of people in the sustainability space are very willing to help each other, for sure. Another thing that's coming to my mind is, I don't know if you saw the shelter charity shop competition that they ran. It was a award for positive social change, I think, and basically they donated lots of stock that wasn't maybe good enough to be sold, or surplus stock from the charity shops, to designers, and they created garments from these around the theme of homelessness. And you know, they were very like avant-garde. You probably wouldn't wear it down the street, but those garments are now on showcase, like on display in the charity shops local to where the people made them. So I know that's not quite the same as what you're doing, but I do think there's both power in relationships in our local area and more online learning from each other together. So sorry, I thought that was not a very specific solution, but I don't know if that's raising any more questions or ideas from you as well.
No, that's fine. I like the idea of the directories, and it's not like I'm looking for a solution like right here in the Zoom call, then go away and implement it. It's simply this idea of having a central place where you either get fabric or sell your work, which is outside the big cities, because if you live in Edinburgh or Glasgow, you have more options than myself here in the countryside between Perth and Dundee. And that's a shame, because I mentioned East Perthshire. I know that I'm losing out on many customers simply because of my location. Who, you know, if you live in a city and you have all these amenities there, why would you drive an hour to find a wee home-based studio like mine? And that's why this issue of having galleries and shops that dedicate their space to sustainable fashion is important to me, because these shops, they don't have to be in Glasgow and Edinburgh. They could be in Dundee, for example. And yes, that's why I'm looking to make contacts. And it's not like I'm sitting here in my studio and I don't know what's going on in the world. I've done my homework, I think, and there are no such facilities as I was describing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's no solution as such. I have to build something.
Yeah.
Create a solution.
Yeah, that sounds great. And it's a shame you have to do that, but if you were willing to do that, I guess maybe if there are others near you or in Dundee, or, you know, maybe you have to go a bit further afield, but that would be willing to collaborate on something like that. I think that could be really powerful as well, just getting more people involved. And it's not, like you said, you've done your research. I don't know that well, that context, but I feel like there may be like funding to help set up like a community space or even a temporary kind of thing. And often those fundings will favour collaborations and bringing people together. But as I said, I'm not an expert in that. I'm sure you've probably done your research into there. But yeah, I'm happy to, if you want to send an email after or have more of a chat, I'm very happy to do that. But yeah, that is a big problem. And one of our aims at SFS over the past year and ongoing has been to, you know, engage more with people beyond the central belt, beyond the big cities, because there are incredible people doing really great work, but we know they're not getting the support that you need. So I'm sorry about that as well, but I know it's a really good thing a really good question to raise and challenge to raise. But yeah, happy to work on it further in future.
I'm looking forward to these directories.
Yeah.
Sound like a good step forward.
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of my baby project, like my child, so I'm really hoping to push it forward this year. But thank you, it's really good just to get feedback on that as well and what it could be useful for. So I'll keep that in mind for sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Would anyone else like to suggest a challenge or share anything they're working on? I see Rachel has shared in the chat, so maybe I'll read that out while we're thinking. So Rachel can't turn her camera and mic on right now, but she said, "Hello, I am a master's student at GCU and currently doing a research-based consultancy project with Justice and Fashion. I'm looking into how they can effectively use digital marketing communications to drive sustainability, specifically social sustainability, as well as creating partnerships. What you were saying previously regarding storytelling and focusing on stories of change is definitely useful, but just looking to see if you had any other inputs regarding these challenges." And just to add, their main form of digital communications is through LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing that, Rachel. I don't know Justice and Fashion. I've not heard of them before. They sound great. But that's really good to hear you're like using that as part of your studies to help for a real world project as well. Yeah, I guess, again, I'm glad the storytelling section has helped. And it's interesting you've said to focus specifically on social sustainability. I guess that's with the justice, and that's maybe maybe I don't have a specific answer right now without more context, but one place to look at, or there's a few places you could look at for inspiration, perhaps. So kind of similar to how you would do like a competitor audit, although it's probably not, you wouldn't call them competitors because it's, you're all fighting for the same shared goal. But places such as Fashion Revolution, who do the Who Made My Clothes hashtag and do lots of work on human rights through, and have really great communication online and through events, that kind of thing. Also, like Labour Behind the Label, they do a lot of great content. They I think it's them, or the Clean Clothes campaign, they do a lot of storytelling, like amplifying the voices of garment workers. So I suppose, again, I don't know your context too specifically, but if it is to do with, like you said, social sustainability, justice and fashion for the people like working in fashion, focusing on the stories of the people that are impacted by the issues of fashion. And I guess also when you're doing that, you have to be careful not to just take, like, yeah, you said garment workers' rights, that's great, but yeah, it's a tricky one, because you don't want to exploit these people. You know, they don't owe you their story. That's not what it's about at all. So I think it's really important to work with people rather than just use them for your communications, if that makes sense. And I know that's maybe, I don't have a specific way on how to do that, but again, just comes down to building relationships, building trust, and including them in the design process, you know, asking them what's important to you, what is it that you want to share, what would help you. So I think that's really important, just thinking about the kind of power dynamics and the relationships there. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But yeah, feel free to pop in the chat if you have any other questions. Would anyone else like to, or also if anyone else has any suggestions on what we've chatted about so far, please do share. Thanks, Rachel. But would anyone else like to, or any of these cards, even if you didn't write them, is anything kind of standing out to you that would be interesting?
Well, Cornelia, we're not anywhere near you. We're in East Asia, but we've kind of put out the word that we're wanting to recycle fabrics. So because people in the area know that, they've donated us lots of stuff. Like sometimes it's just old garments, sometimes it's like fabric samples, but also we've been donated whole rolls of fabric. So so maybe just making people aware that that's something that you're looking for. You might get lucky donations.
I've done that, Abby, and it's nice what you find in these donated bags from time to time. But the biggest problem is space. The moment I started working with textiles, my pretty bungalow instantly turned into a charity shop itself. So I live among towers of plastic boxes, transparent plastic boxes, so I can see what fabric's inside. It doesn't work in a private home. You would have a proper storage space, almost like a warehouse. And that again leads me to the suggestion there should be a cooperative somewhere central where you go and you know you'll find something, instead of visiting 3, 4, 5 charity shops on one day and come home with 2 blouses that are too small to be turned into much more than squares. But thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're running out of space as well. But we could maybe email you with descriptions of what rolls we've got and see if any of those fabrics interest you. That's just one way we could do that.
I'm happy to put my email address in the chat room. There is one point that comes to mind right away: cost of transport. If you were my neighbor or in a town nearby, it wouldn't be a problem, but you would have to wrap the fabric, hand it over to a courier most likely, and I pay for this, and this makes my business unviable because I'm relying on cheap fabric, or in the case of donations, free fabrics. Again, warehouse. We need a warehouse.
One thing, maybe to add there, and thank you for offering that connection and support as well, Abby, but I know I've said it already, but just because I've been in the meeting today earlier with CAN, with Circular Arts Network. So one way they got around, I think they said they did it in Inverness last month, and they're having one in Fife. They basically had a one-day event where it was sort of a fabric swap event. So people would bring some fabric and you could take fabric away. I mean, I'm assuming you could also go and take stuff that you don't always have to bring, because they probably have so much. But yeah, like that was, I guess that's an example of until or while we don't have a permanent space, maybe like little pop-up events like that, but really focusing on fabric. And I know as part of the spring gathering as well, tomorrow, not near you, but down in the Scottish borders in Langham, Creation Mill, they're hosting a fabric and haberdashery de-stash event. So again, similar thing, like bring some stuff to swap, take what you want. And also with CAN, another thing they said they've done and could do in future is basically sort of do a portable warehouse. So like get one of their vans or hire a big van, collect fabric from people on a certain route. And then, you know, you would come in, take what you need. And I don't know if maybe they'd go there and back again, so everyone kind of gets a chance. But they're quite a small team. They're quite agile. So Kate, who spoke, was very happy for anyone to get in touch and even just say, like, you know, I'm looking, you don't have to have it. You could say, I'm interested in, or this is the type of fabric I'm looking for. Could you, you know, I live here a bit far away from other people. Or, you know, even if you said, like Cornelia and Abby, we know each other. Is there any way you could help get things to and from each other if that worked out? So that's, I mean, that's not something SFS can provide, but CAN are really happy to I think they like a challenge and want to figure out. So I would recommend getting in touch with them. I'll just share their website in the chat as well. But yeah, that's quite a big challenge, but there are people working on it, which is good to know. And again, I think just sharing our learnings and offering support, like Abby did, is really helpful. So thank you for that. Perfect. We've only got just about 10 minutes left. So we can either look at a couple more examples here and work through them together, or if anyone just has any other more general questions, or if you want to look at anything that I mentioned before, please do share. I'm quite happy for it to be quite open and whatever makes the most sense for you, whatever you need.
Well, I've put the one about engaging the community, getting them infused in repair and repurposing and everything. And I think what has come up here about the storytelling, I think that could be a very good thing if people feel that they already know a wee bit about people's lives and get to see a bit of this repair and repurposing in action, just in a friendly way.
Mm-hmm.
They might find it more accessible. But I was wondering if you had any other suggestions of stuff that has worked.
Yeah, definitely have a think. So maybe again, the questions that we spoke, was it with Rebecca earlier, was one, what's worked well so far? That's always good to start. I think that's a good place to start from. What's working well, what's going well so far. And it also, I mean, you've kind of said there, but again, just like, what is your goal? I mean, I think you've said trying to encourage people to attend these free workshops, but yeah, I guess maybe like, what kind of people is it that you are interested in bringing and attracting as well?
Yeah, well, we've had quite a lot of success with retired women who have like always been quite interested in sewing as a hobby, but there's a lot of people that are unemployed and quite broke who should in theory kind of benefit out of repairing rather than buying new, and they might find a new interesting activity or even a career. So it would be good to engage those people.
Mm-hmm. And you've like you've not had as much success with that group of people compared to.
No, we've had hardly any success, to be honest.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that again, it's not my area of expertise, but I'm sure we can have a think of some things. One thing that is coming to my mind that I haven't totally figured it out. It's processing is maybe if I'll just show you. So linking to the barriers. So again, if you read this book, it probably isn't as evolved as what I'm kind of thinking and saying now, but might still be useful. But I think going back to these barriers is helpful because, for example, for like you're saying, for people that are unemployed, they obviously have very different situations, very different needs, very different like fears or problems compared to retired women, for example. So thinking about maybe even, going through each of these barriers and thinking, kind of trying to paint a picture. Obviously not everyone's the same, but thinking about potential like pain points or barriers within these that could apply to that group, but also positive things as well. It doesn't all need to be problems or things, things that that group of people might find attractive, for example, that you can then use to engage them. And so maybe one example of that, for example, is I find accessibility convenience is a really big one. So I think, again, in the book, when I'm talking about this, it's more about that there aren't many like sustainability options on the high street, for example. Like in cities, it's just big fast fashion brands. There's not smaller designers because the rent's so high, and charity shops aren't usually in the high street. They're kind of, a bit away. But even for, I guess, perhaps for someone unemployed, that accessibility convenience, maybe they don't feel like they are able to access, like that's not a space for them. And so I guess that's like a slightly different angle on it. And then you would need to dig into like, well, why could that be? And yeah, I guess also another great thing to do in marketing, as I said, we're all learning, is to ask other people that have been in a similar situation. So I haven't personally been in that situation before, but one person I know that I could put you in touch with, for example, is, I don't know if you know already, maybe you do, Roz from Repair What You Wear. Don't know if you've.
No, I've not heard of them.
Cool. I can put you in touch with them for sure. So Roz is based, and it's Roz and Ellie that run it, sorry, but they're based in Aberdeen, and what they have is free online resources teaching people hand sewing and repair skills. So Roz herself has done workshops and classes with like vulnerable groups, or including unemployed people, teaching them how to sew. So I'm sure she'd have much better advice than I can on that specific challenge. But I mean, I guess, yeah, I can definitely put you in touch with her. I can do that after this. That's fine. Yeah. Great. Perfect. Do you have any other questions about that, or is that okay for now?
Yeah, that was fine. Yeah, that's good.
Perfect, thank you. As I mean, I don't have all the solutions, but it's good just to get a few different perspectives and start thinking and what you can look into to make change. So thank you for bringing it to this space as well, and yeah, for sharing more about the situation, because it is difficult. None of this is easy, but it's really important. So thank you for doing the work you're doing as well.
Well, thanks, Mairi.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any thoughts to share either on that or anything else as well? Just the last few minutes before we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, hi Anna, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can't hear you anymore. Oh, you're on mute, I think.
Yeah. Hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I was just driving from A to B and it took a little bit longer. My phone went flat, so I've missed the first part of this Zoom. I was just going to ask you if you could zoom out on your PowerPoint so I could grab everything you've talked about. because I've just caught the last 20 minutes.
No
So
problem.
it's just
I can also I'm going to send this over afterwards in an email as well. So if you want to zoom in and explore bits, that's perfect. I can do that.
thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you very much. So I don't know if everybody introduced themselves and where everybody is and what they're doing and why they're looking for marketing in sustainable fashion and what that's all about for the group. For me, I'm on a Churchill Fellowship recipient of a large award from Australia that I'm traveling through Europe and the UK looking at sustainable fashion and art, global markets and sustainable and ethically kind of induced manufacturing or production. So I myself am a small maker. I have a small shop in a CBD area. So interestingly enough, Cornelia, that you're talking about like where to sell it and what to do. As an artist, I've lived in really remote places with no market. There's, I have to get in a car to drive somewhere to find someone to buy it or have an exhibition or put myself in that world. Now I'm running a shop. It's literally changed everything. So I'm not isolated anymore, but it's also an investment in the work itself so that you have a platform on your terms. As soon as you start selling in other people's galleries, or there'll be commissions and rent and different ideas about how they'll recoup their rent. And so I've made that commitment to myself that I've got a very small, cheap shop, so it's not a big deal. But I also have many income streams. So I work as a consultant working for small groups of community that want to develop textiles or learn to repair or learn to sew or to make an art piece, whatever. As an artist, I mean, that's just survival, that you would work in the community like that and take on extra jobs outside of exhibition or commission work. In terms of sourcing fabric, I live in a very remote area and I go to a big city once a year and I go shopping and I fill up, like you said, big boxes of linen, cotton, silk. Recycled fabric is predominantly what I've worked with for the last 10 years, although I do work with handloom fabrics coming from artisan weavers in India as well, and small amounts of other fabric coming from mainstream places. But generally I try for recycling. But I mean, there's two conversations there. There's a room at home stuffed full that you can't even get in the room, and then you can't get enough. So there's at some point you need to stop buying and start making, because I can always spend a day looking in an op shop or a charity shop for raw materials. But if I went looking in my own house, I'm pretty sure I'd find it. So you've got to learn to balance that cycle, because I'm pretty sure if I never bought another piece of fabric, I don't think I could run out for the rest of my life. I've hoarded so much. So you need to check yourself sometimes about why you're buying or what it is you need, and to look at the recycling that could happen in your own space. It occurred to me once as I was cleaning out someone who'd deceased, and in their studio, it didn't seem that there was any finished work, lots of started projects, but an incredible amount of art supply. And I thought it would be my worst nightmare to die with that much art supply and not have used it. So it's like, for me, I have to check how much I've got in stock and what I'm trying to do, and whether I just need to do the hours to work or whether I actually need to go and buy more materials, and whether I can think, in a more sustainable way rather than just going shopping for something, if there's something I can use already. And that's been a challenge for me, but I've survived for the last 10 years in that one. But the investment is really the rent and having a place to sell it, and more than that, a community, so people will come to you and meet you and know you. And then that comes back to the story of behind the textile. People want to see people making things. So often I think if I had my work in other people's shops or other galleries, the story's lost, and that people really want to meet an artist or a maker. And if you're not, other makers want to meet other makers, here we all are. Or then there's the market. the way to access different groups of individuals. My market definitely has money in their pocket, because I don't sell things cheaply because it takes so long to make, and it's always of good quality, and I repair garments without question. If anybody brings anything in and it's got drunk and got a hole through its hem or anything like that, I'm usually just go and get me a coffee and I'll have this done in half an hour, and that's just a service I provide. People get too big for their clothes or they need adjustments, I do that for no cost at all, just because they've paid a lot of money, and I'm hoping that they'll cherish it for a long time. It's not fast, it's very slow. So that's my idea of sustainable, is that I'm using natural fibers, that everything's a unique art piece. There's an investment in the garment by the owner and myself that will continue our relationship for, it's not fast. And yeah, it's really great to be here and in this Zoom. Thanks for having an event while I'm in Scotland. Looking for you all. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and story as well. And just what you said then, just about relationships. I think that's it's just so important, isn't it? As that shift from more transactional to relationships, and whether that's through selling or building community, as you said, meeting other makers. Yeah, we're all there. We can all support each other.
Yeah, there's the world, there's people who have money to buy and there's people who have time to make, and they're not often the same people, that they're unemployed, or, you can encourage everyone to fix and mend, and that's a great skill to have. But I've just been in India for 3 months and people refuse to wear secondhand clothes. It's not a thing. So I'm buying a lot of secondhand Indian fabrics that Indians wouldn't wear. Just, but culturally, there's some change that needs to happen, I guess, in that space.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to close the event for now. I'll stop recording, at least if anyone wants to hang around to chat for 5 to minutes. I'm happy to stay on for a little bit. But I hope this event was at least got you thinking, set you on some new streams. And Abby, I'll connect you with Roz from Repair What You Wear, and I'll send an email out to everyone with the link to the Miro board and any other things I think might be useful as well. So thank you very much. And as I said, feel free to email me. I don't have loads of time, but I'm interested in this. I would like to build my skills myself, so I'm happy to have further chats or just share over email any ideas. So thank you so much for coming and bringing your story and challenges as well. It makes it really interesting for everyone, and hopefully you can learn from other people's situations as well. I think that's really a good skill to have. So thank you very much, and take care, and hopefully see you at another spring gathering event as well.
Thanks, Mary, and bye-bye to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Marion, thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
Abby. Nice to meet you.